How surprised are you that Hugh Jackson's staying as the Cleveland Browns head coach?
That just hit my email inbox from the NFL Network assignment desk. This is a team release. This is no report. The team sent this out. It's crazy, man. How do you fire your grocery shopper and the man in charge of all of this, and then announce that you're keeping the guy who's 1-27? I mean,
wow.
And then I guess you'll have to find a new grocery shopper that's got to keep Hugh Jackson for a year. I mean, it's just the absolute wrong way to go about building a team when you've got the opportunity. You've got the number 1 overall pick. You've got a ton of draft picks. It's all set up, Sixers style, I guess. And if you want to have a general manager to come in, and he's going to want his own coach. I mean,
yeah.
I honestly don't have an answer for this one. None. Zero.
But if you look at the draft picks, the problem that I've had with the Cleveland Browns is that they've had draft picks. They just haven't used those draft picks wisely. And I could understand changing that. Have they seen enough in the coaching abilities of Hugh Jackson, even though they won 1 game here and may not win a game this season? Has a coach ever survived this kind of stretch in the NFL? I can't imagine.
You have to understand. No, I can't imagine somebody go. I mean, look, the Giants just fired a coach mid-season for the first time since 1976 because he started 2-10. But you have to understand about how empty the cupboard was, and then who in that. I guess we'll find out at some point when someone writes a book about it. Who was the one who really decided to raise their hand and say Carson Wentz wasn't top 20 talent in this league? Who is the one who decided, yes, let's accept that trade offer from the Houston Texans instead of taking Deshaun Watson? Who's that guy? Who are those gentlemen? And if Hugh Jackson is not that guy, and he's the guy who apparently left Carson Wentz's pro day and called him up and told him how much he loved him, that's all you hear about. And so maybe he doesn't have his fingerprints on that. Maybe the guy who just got bounced just did. I don't know. But
that's crazy.
All that said, the way you attract talent in the NFL in the front office is you say to somebody, okay, you've been waiting for a job like this. Here it is. You got all these draft choices. You get to choose the coach. Now someone's going to come in and say, okay, now you got to keep Hugh Jackson. What if you don't want the guy? I mean, and it's no offense to Hugh. Anybody who's going to want to leave, you want to get you want to get somebody who's been waiting in the front office behind, say, Bill Belichick or Ozzie Newsome to come to Cleveland and straighten it all out. But you got to keep Hugh Jackson. They're really going to leave their job? I can't imagine.
He's Rich Eisen, NFL Network, and it's Atlanta tonight, the Saints and the Falcons. Now, you were going to fly to Atlanta, but because of the fires, you were not able to get out of Los Angeles?
Well, no, I was able to get out, but the fires were a little too close to home, literally, figuratively. So, and the network and NBC were awesome. They're like, just stay home. My setup, Susie and the 3 kids, and it's frightening. There's just no other way to put it. It is frightening. The winds can blow anywhere, and so I'm glad to be home. I will definitely miss being at this huge game, but I'm glad to be home and in L.A. But tonight is huge, Dan. I mean, Atlanta needs to – this is must-win territory, 4 games to go. And I always thought the NFC South was going to be some sort of round-robin where everybody picks each other off in Week 17. And Game 256 might be, Atlanta at Saints on NBC, that last game where it's an all or nothing, or a huge game where it's a bye week or a road trip to start the playoffs. But the Saints win tonight, they wrap it up pretty much. They would have a huge lead, a 3-game lead on Atlanta. Carolina takes on the Vikings this week, and they've already lost the season series to New Orleans. The Saints could wrap it up tonight with a win, and personally I think they do. I just love their running game. I love the way that they're playing, and I think they have the mettle to go on a short week on the road and win in this building.
I wanted to ask you about the plays, the suspensions this week that you had Gronk and you had Smith-Schuster, but George Iloka somehow talked his way out of a suspension. I mentioned that,
Yeah, right.
that this isn't the targeting rule that college has, but it's the NFL's version of a targeting rule. They have more time to review this. You have a 24-hour period where you can say, you know what, on second thought, we're going to suspend you for a game, as opposed to in college, you got 90 seconds to look at a review, maybe not all the angles, and you could decide a college football game by sending out a marquee player for targeting. Do you think the NFL, with 10 suspensions for on-the-field play, has a targeting rule? It's just not not using that name.
Well, they've had a targeting rule forever. It's called the fine system. Brandon Stokely tweeted about it yesterday, and he's a guy who's got many, many years of catching footballs in the NFL, and he's just like, the reason that's the deterrent is the fine system, and the reason why they have targeting in college, you can't find the players. My problem with targeting in college is it is where replay is used to judge intent sometimes, which is dumb. It's crazy. Where you think, it's intent and you don't know if it's intent. Let's go under the hood and let's check out intent. And then you go under the hood and you see, well, a little piece of the helmet caught a little part of his face mask. So that's it. The kid's not out. They're now out for the game and out for the next half of the next game. And it's so arbitrary between the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and the SEC, and it drives me insane, that rule. Part of me agrees with Mike Mitchell with his soliloquy yesterday, where he said he got fined because Andy Dalton threw a bad ball.
Oh, yeah.
Where he threw it in a spot where anybody who reads a defense knows the defense that Mike Mitchell is playing, and a quarterback should know not to throw it in spot X, because in spot X his receiver is going to get blown up. I remember the weekend where this all kind of changed in the NFL, Dan. If you remember, I forget which season it was, but it was when Eric Legrand got wound up getting carted off, and then eventually, as we found out, paralyzed, and they hit in Rutgers. And then the next day, three incidents happened where Muhammad Massaquoi was blown up by James Harrison. Brandon Merriweather went top rope in the middle of the field against Todd Heap, the tight end of Baltimore. And Deshaun Jackson got absolutely obliterated coming across the middle by Dante Robinson of the Falcons. And Marshall Faulk went on game day morning the next week and said the play of Dante Robinson blowing up Deshaun Jackson was on his quarterback, who I believe was Nick Foles, and also on Deshaun Jackson, who should have known running through the middle of the field what defense he was running into, and he kept running. Foles threw behind him, and Robinson blew him up because that's the type of defense that was being played, and Jackson should have known he needed to stop in the middle of the field, otherwise he's running into trouble. So these things need to be taken into account sometimes, that the players are all instinctive, to bring it, I guess, all full circle, is they are instinctively making plays, and targeting does not take that into account. They think that somebody's going to come across the middle and say, might be called for targeting, so let me, like the magic bullet, change my path in midair and try and avoid the hit. And it just angers a lot of people. It's just not a perfect system. When it all comes down to it, there should be some form of uniform suspension, that if you are flagged for X and you make contact with body part Y with helmet, that equals this suspension, and that's it. And we've just fit it in a box, and everyone is a fan and a player and a coach and an announcer understands what it is.
Have fun tonight, Rich. Good to catch up with you. Glad the family's safe.
Thanks, bud.
All right,
take care.
Rich Eisen, NFL Network.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.